So for those of you who are here, and there was a request for this particular topic about memory. I wouldn't say there are much secrets about it because memory by itself is a big secret. And why I say that is because it's still a lot of areas that need to be explored, and it is something that our understanding of memory is expanding. Okay, our research is going on too. So if you'd like to know just a little bit about what memory is about and what you can do to prime your memory, keep it primed, stick on and okay, is memory about the brain? Now you can see this nice little artistic diagram of the brain and the sections that they say are in the brain, and they've given them regions and they've given them names. And what is extremely important for human beings and mammals, the advanced mammals, is the prefrontal cortex, because it does a lot of work for you. It does, uh, it's an extremely important part of the brain. So everything else has come through evolution. Of course, your auditory, your sight, all of these things, your speaking, all of that, your associative memory with has come from evolution. But as we've evolved, we've started to get more areas of our, brain has developed. Okay. And you've got the gray matter and white matter and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, one of the biggest and most important factors of your brain are the neurons. Now, I don't expect you to kind of remember these terms because it's just be aware of it, so that you know that there are different parts in your body, and the neuron is not just one kind of. It doesn't look similar always. Okay, and you've got different types of neurons. Okay, so the names, this is one kind of classification. They have another kind of classification where they say is related to motor response, and so they have kind of different classifications. But this classification I'm talking about is the structure of the neuron. So it'll give you a little more, because everything else is a classification. This one is kind of like very direct. Okay, so a multipolar neuron, uh, as you can see. Uh, it can receive a lot multi channels. It can receive a lot of information. Okay, and you can see that the dendrites are the ones that actually connect, and there is an axiom there. Okay, or axon. Okay, which is the one that connects to the cell body, and a lot of things go through that, and some of them have myelin and some don't. Okay, but that's not important. The ones with myelin are the ones that actually are supposed to speed up the entire process. Okay, so you can see the unipolar is something that has to react very quickly. So there's a rapid signal that goes, it moves through these type of neurons very quickly. And these will be associated with things like reflexes, muscle movement, where the electrical signals, of course, yeah, everything goes through electrochemical reaction in your body that actually sends these electrical signals. And so it's really, really fast. Okay. And so the body reacts even before the brain can realize what's going on. So this is something where the unipolar is active. The other one is the bipolar. Okay. I don't think this is about bipolar disorder. Okay. And it has nothing to do with bipolar at all. It's called bipolar because it goes two ways. Now, a good example is the eye. Okay. So why you say, okay, the eye receives light, where's the sending? Now, if there is too much of light, then what happens? Yeah, you either close your eyes or your pupils will, they'll go down, dilate, and etc. Okay. So there is a two-way kind of signal happening out here. So this is bipolar. Okay. And pseudo, unipolar. And of course, like I said, this is again with your skin, muscles, all of this. So there are signals that go in and out. And this is kind of autonomous part of your body, which you really, you probably get a sensation if something bites you. I know a lot of mosquitoes flying around these days and funny things happening. So our skin is like super sensitive, and we get all those signals through this. Okay. So it goes to the spinal cord. and the spinal cord has its auto reflexes and its auto system that comes back. But anyway, why is this so important? Is because the neurons are actually the ones that communicate throughout. They send signals in and out. There is no point in having memory if you don't have any signals going in and out. Okay, it's like taking your portable hard disk. You take all your documents, you put in a portable hard disk, and you put the portable hard disk in your drawer. Now you have no access to it, right? Until you plug it back. So similarly, the neurons is what plugs, your information, your memory together. Okay. Now there is a concept called synaptic plasticity. Okay, sorry about that. Plasticity. Okay, I always get a twist with this one. Okay, so it's a connection between a group of neurons and they connect to your brain cells. Okay, now whenever you learn something or especially become memory is something that's new and is something that you're absorbing, the hippocampus plays a role in taking this initial memory formation and is kind of puts it in a short-term memory. Okay, so it's there, and uh, as you keep learning, what happens is neurons start to make new connections because they need to start distributing this information to different parts of the brain and the brain cells, and new neurons almost in minutes start to connect, start to grow. So it's an amazing thing. And if you'd like to see it actually happening in a demonstration, you can go check out a couple of videos online and just search for neurons growing while learning, and you probably stumble upon some videos as to how that's happening. Now, you must remember that whatever you do throughout the day, the brain has what we call a filter, and we develop these filters across the years that we grow. We start creating filters as early as the age of between 4 and 6, and as in your teens, and then as your early adulthood, you start creating some very significant filters. Now, these significant filters are the way you have formed your life, okay, and the kinds of things you do. Now, some people may be born in a family where they're all bankers and following banking. Some people might be manufacturing, might have a business. Some people are just hardworking, toiler, plow the fields and everything. So, based on that circumstance and based on a lot of things that happen, you create filters in your life. Okay. And these filters will actually take memories that are important for running the way your life the way it is right now. And the ones which are not important get filtered out. But initially, you will get lots of it does get filtered out even while you're there. Okay. And this is the point where we say mindful, and we are not entirely mindful. We're not actually living in that present moment. And so our filters take over because there's a lot of input. There's tremendous amount of input. There is much more input than our brain can really take and handle. So as a kind of a mechanism saying instead of getting all this data, I'll only take the information that is relevant to me. So while that happens, the next stage is when you sleep and you get all these dreams. Now these dreams are actually a lot of this information that is finding its permanent storage, or it's deciding whether it needs to be discarded, you don't remember it at all, or should I kind of keep it and retain it somewhere. Okay, so sleep is extremely important. It helps organize your memory. Now, what are some techniques to improve your memory? Now, of course, as you know, small children in school will be asked to repeat, 100 times, say the same thing over and again, say your alphabet, and you keep saying it up and down, up and down, up and down. Now, for children, this is a little better because their entire scope of thinking is quite limited because they have very little memory. They've lived only so long, and there's only so much that they have absorbed, and there's only so much that they're able to comprehend. So, repetition is something great for people who have a kind of a very limited background data or background information of life or whatever, or experience. The other thing to do is what we call an associative memory. Now, this is something that actually happens in the brain by itself. There is a kind of an association that happens. And for us to improve our memories, associating something will always help you recall it a lot quicker and help you retain it. Now, you might associate, for example, if I say, um, tennis ball. Okay, the first thing that will come to your mind is you'll get the color green in your mind, and you'll get the white lines on it, and that's what will come to you immediately. And that visual impact of saying tennis ball comes to your head because it is an associative memory. But if I give you a word like hope, okay, now hope is not an object. It's a feeling. So it becomes very hard for you to if I ask you to write an essay on tell me what is hope, you're going to scratch your head slightly because unfortunately there's not much association with that because it's a kind of a word that does not have an object. So as you know, memory is always sticks on when you associate yourself with an object. And that's why some languages uh, they have stuck to pictography, like the Egyptians, Chinese, Japanese. There are a lot of pictographic languages, and they've used that because they feel that a picture is something that can be retained. But at the same time, in terms of practice and the ability to reproduce is not easy because writing a simple Greek alphabet is a lot quicker because you have only 26 to remember, and whereas in pictographic languages you have a lot. Okay, and but it's still a good thing because the language has no boundaries there, and the dictionary of pictures keeps going forward. And of course we do have a lot of pictographic languages even in our current day and age, and you can see a lot of our traffic signs are all pictographic. Okay, and when I tell you the word no parking, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is the circle with that red cross line, right, and a blue background. So it just comes immediately, and that's what we call an associative memory. Okay, and if you want to remember something extremely difficult, it's always good to break them down in a lot of series of images that you can put into your mind. And some people use this technique to remember very complicated formulae and other things. Sometimes people rhyme words with it, um, so that they can, they can remember certain things like dates and events and things like that. Now, another good thing to do is reading. Just keep reading as much as you can because it helps improve your memory, and it keeps because sometimes there's a word you may not have encountered before, a brand new word in your vocabulary, and you'll go look up a dictionary. And that what happens, it encourages a little bit of learning. And what happens when learning happens, yeah, the neurons start firing and they start connecting. Puzzles are really good. Try to do, Sudoku or crossword or any kind of puzzle or even jigsaw puzzles. They're good because they involve a lot of thinking, and this keeps your your memory fresh. It keeps your neurons active, and of course, playing a sport is great. Okay, uh, a more active sport where you have more rapid movement uh, help. You have to think on the fly, and you got to think very quickly. Now, there's a recent study, not recent study, actually, a study that happened quite long ago. And this talked about when people were playing tennis and when somebody served. Now, the persistence of vision is 1/10 of a second, and it takes probably 1/10 of a second for somebody to react to anything. So, when somebody is serving a tennis ball at that speed, it actually is moving faster than the body can react. It's moving faster than 1/10 of a second. And so people ask, if it is going to come less than 1/10 of a second, how does the player return the ball, especially when it's a quick serve? And this can go for any sport that has a lot of high speeds. Even when they play cricket, the ball comes tremendously fast, and sometimes that is under that 1/10 of a second where you can react. So, what really happens is you're relying A on memory okay? And you're trying to anticipate what happens, and you move, in a suggestive way, saying, I think it's going to come here, and you move forward. And that can only come if you had a little bit of experience and practice. You'll be able to have some telltale signs, and which become very subconscious after some time. That's when you start to master your sport. The same thing happens when you drive a car. Initially, it's so tough. You'll be wondering, how do somebody jumps out of the road, and probably in the early days you might have an accident because you're not able to react. But as you get more experience, what happens is you anticipate and you brake, you do things much quicker than you probably would even realize. And you just think, oh, this happened by reflex. You just did it. Okay. So it's important. I have a lot of sleep. It's really, really important. Have a lot of sleep. It's one of the most important things. Sleep deprivation of sleep is something that is going to affect your memory in the long term. Okay. And remember, when you're learning something new, now try learning a new language, try learning a new sport, try dancing. Okay. Also remember to socialize. You have to socialize because human beings are social animals. Okay. And there's a different sensory activation that happens when you socialize, because one is sometimes you'll be meeting somebody new, and then you have to put yourself in a different kind of situation, and you have to react accordingly. And that would requires you digging into what we call an experience and saying, how do I react to the situation? And you decide whether you want to have an engaging conversation or not. And when you have an engaging conversation, you're pulling up some different part of your memory. And maybe we talk about a story or something that happened before. So, socializing, I didn't put it there, but it's something that you should also do. Now, memory is not just the brain. Like I came back in the beginning to talk about this. Some studies suggest that the organs can retain certain kinds of memory. Okay, because some of them you're not aware of, they are subconscious. Your organs do certain things on its own because it has its own memory. But there's also been a small leak that sometimes skills that you've acquired, extreme experience, sort of spreads down to your organs as well. And there have been cases where people have got transplants, and suddenly they've picked up the skill of the donor. Whoever's donated that organ, they suddenly picked up their skills. And it just happened overnight without any training, they just suddenly had this fantastic ability to do something, and an urge and a need to do it. So there is kind of a lot more to be studied. And but they definitely have encountered that there are certain types of memory that are related to the organ itself, and they're finding that a lot of non-communicable diseases are probably the caused by the wrong kind of memory in the organ. Now, if the organ gets into a certain situation, and then it just remembers to do that again and again, and it doesn't. So what happens is it moves into a degenerative path, and it just remembers it. So when the new cells get there, and you replenish the cells, and it grows again, and what happens, it retains the memory of that, and it doesn't function the way it's supposed to. And of course, there are many external factors like stress, external agents, a lot of things. Another thing also for your memory is keeping your sensories, your sensory perception alive and in the moment. Yeah, be mindful. Live in the present as much as you can. Don't daydream too much. Daydream if you want to, it's good. You can meditate, but set a separate time. But when you're supposed to be mindful, be mindful. Okay? Especially when you're doing some very important activities. And so they say that while you're in this midst of doing a lot of things, you have to continuously exercise your mind, and you have to have a part of your body involved with what you're doing. It's the best way for you to accomplish a very symbiotic kind of relationship uh, with the activity of your brain, the activity of your body. And what happens is if your brain becomes active, the body becomes active. And sometimes when the body is active, the brain becomes active. So it's a kind of it's self-backing or a mutual kind of an understanding between, let's say, what we call the brain and the body. So, keeping your memory alive can also serve, and they believe that it can help recover some things even with your organs, because uh, there is research saying that a more active mind has a better resistance to aging diseases that come with aging, is because you have an active memory. And of course, there are a lot of things like Alzheimer's and a lot of degenerative brain diseases that do happen, and they're doing a lot more research as to why and how they can conquer this. But the best thing to do is to keep your brain active. So you can meditate. Meditation is also a good thing. Don't forget to do that. Mindfulness is something which is becoming a new wave, kind of a way of living, and that is to be focused in the moment. If you're eating something, then know what you're eating and focus on that. Try not to be, looking at your phone or doing something else. And likewise, for many other things that you do, it is better to be living in the moment. And living in the moment is not easy, because we have learned to multitask. We've learned we have so many inputs coming in, we have so many things to do. And when we thought automation was going to make our life easier and make us more lazy, it actually hasn't, because our mind has to drift on many things right now. And you can see you have a laptop, you have a phone, you have a TV, you've got Alexas, and you've got stuff, speakers talking to you, you've got cameras looking at you, you've got, whoops, I think my my system went off because I used the word. Okay. Now, another thing is that consciousness and the quantum field is now something that is raking up a lot of research. Now, in an earlier video, I talked about quantum consciousness and microtubules that can house particles that can be in two states. Okay. The quantum states, they can be, you won't know. It's like the Schrodinger's cat story. You know, the cat is neither dead nor alive. So a particle in these microtubules can be in actually two states. And you cannot predict what they are. And they feel that the influences in this quantum field are actually what your consciousness is all about. And there's a lot of deep research going into that. They've actually discovered that there is a quantum state happening in these microtubules. And like we know, consciousness plays a very big part in the way our brain functions, the way we live, the way we think. And the way we think also comes naturally from a lot of our experiences and memory. So the next kind of evolution that in science, not exactly an evolution, but a quest in science, is to find out if there's anything that is related to this. And is consciousness something that is not really entirely in our body, but is in another state or another field altogether? And they question how you get inspired. How do you get suddenly, um, you get these things where you say, I'm thinking about somebody, and that person just turns up, or they call you, and you have this premonition. And so they're kind of trying to get into fringe science and find out whether there is a connection between this. And like I say, is memory only in the brain? And could it also have memory drift in a different quantum field? So this is something that uh, may unfold as we go forward. It's all theories at this point of time, but uh, for the purpose of a lot of things, do read more. Uh, Read, and it's a good thing. It's going to help you with your memory. So do read, watch a couple of things. You can also play video games. It's a kind of good thing to keep your, especially ones that very dynamic ones where you have to run around and stuff like that. It keeps your brain a little active. So if you did like this particular video, just don't forget to comment about it. And of course, before I move on, what foods can you eat? Okay, just remember to have fatty fish in your diet. Coffee is a good thing because coffee is a good stimulant. And I mean, of course, don't drink, tons and gallons of it. A couple of coffees a day is fantastic. Dark chocolate is really good. Greater than 70 or 80% dark chocolate is a brain food. Blueberries, turmeric abundant, and we can see turmeric is repeating itself in almost everything. So don't forget to have this particular component in your diet. Broccoli, pumpkin seeds are also good for uh, activating a lot of the power of the brain. Green tea helps a lot of circulation and breaks down a lot of free radicals. Eggs, I mean, again, a wonder food. Don't, if you're somebody who can eat an egg, please do it. Have an egg a day, it's just fantastic. Oranges are also good, citrus fruits, because of the vitamin C, they all help. So, I'm sure most of this is already in your diet, but if you're somebody who doesn't really eat, non-vegetarian food, you can replace the fatty fish with some kind of omega-3. There's things like olive oil, mustard seeds, and variety of foods that have omega-3. And don't forget to get that into your diet. So remember, the last laugh is for the people who follow the dynamic vitality model. And if you've been here and following these videos, I'm sure you've gained a lot of knowledge, and I hope you put this into practice. So we'll see you in the next video.